Hello and welcome to this week's lecture. This week we're going to look at annotated bibliographies, pathfinders, and LibGuides, mostly with a focus on LibGuides because that is going to be your final assignment. So what are these and why do we need them? So annotated bibliographies are a list of resources by a particular topic, author, or publisher. As you noted, we looked at bibliographies as one of our types of references that we've already covered. And they usually include annotations to provide additional information. They're often used by really experienced researchers or by to fill a particular need in terms of comprehensiveness. So we looked at the bibliography of something about the author, basically, is a bibliography, an annotated bibliography. But the book, some of the A to Z in books, where it gives you a bunch of information, an annotation on each book with additional information. It's not going to be used by just any researcher, but definitely a more advanced researcher, i.e. you or a teacher looking for particular books to use in the classroom or add to your library. Pathfinders, also known as subject guides, while similar to bibliographies, are designed for beginning researchers and tend to guide users by following the flow of the research process. They are more selective than bibliographies. They're not going to include everything, and may also include non-print resources such as websites, databases, and magazines. Now, some annotated bibliographies, especially more current ones, will also include other types of media. But a pathfinder, which was an old-fashioned kind of term for this, and now a LibGuide is a similar thing. You may also find other names for them, but any collection, curated collection, basically, of resources would be considered, is what we're talking about now. Can be something as simple as an annotated bibliography with 10 resources about a simple, about a certain subject. We used to do quick ones for, and actually I still have in the children's lit class, I still have you do a annotated bibliography around a subject with just 10 titles and annotations. They're really useful because they're a great reference tool. They can include reader's advisory. It can be a really great virtual collaboration with teachers. So you can collaborate with the teachers by saying, you know that they're covering this topic at a certain point in their school year. You may not be able to get into the classroom to work with them on research, but you can certainly provide them with some sort of LibGuide Pathfinder bibliography that will help their students find quality resources about the topic. It can be a good introduction to information sources. It can be a starting place for research. You can give these to students so that they can include things such as databases so that the student can go in and find what they need. You can guide them to a particular database. We've been using some pretty general databases, but especially as students get older, there are some particular databases that would focus more on history or medicine or business that you could give them as a place to start their research. And that way it will guide them away from thinking about Googling everything and get them into understanding new kinds of new places to go for research. And is also part of our new standards, one of which is Curate. So Curate is the shared foundation for, and the key commitment for Curate is to make meaning for oneself and others by collecting, organizing, and sharing sources of personal relevance. That's the broad overview statement, but what you're looking to do actually in Curate, left hand on the mouse is not working for me as well. What I'm looking to do with Curate and how I'm connecting these LibGuides, which are a variety of sources, with Curates, is, okay, here we go. So these are the new National School Library Standards. If you've already taken 5130 recently or 6110, you will have used the book that these come out of. If you're new and this is one of your first classes, you are not familiar with these new standards yet, but I want to tie in this one, Curate. So overall, this is just the overall how it looks to the learner, where you need to have the learners think. And if you think of this in terms of a research process, find, evaluate, and select information sources in response to an information need. And we're going to talk a little bit more about information needs in terms of personal information needs, imposed query information needs. We talked about an imposed query where you go and ask a question and do research based on what somebody else has given you to do. But that's part of curating, the Curate standard. Add value to a collection of resources by organizing and annotating them. So you're actually going to be doing this part by creating a LibGuide. You can then actually have students create some kind of collection of resources, their own pathfinder, their own bibliography, and annotate the sources, the way of learning about sources. Oh, the other thing we did up here, find, evaluate, and evaluate. We looked at evaluating websites last week. At least I hope we did. I feel like because I put up an old lecture, I feel like I've skipped it. Learners develop their own personal resource collections and exchange organized information sets with others. That's a very formalized way to put it, but it can also be done in a very personalized way. We all developed places that we go and resources that we use. You can use many different types of, we have informally developed, like we know the address or we know we want to go to here or there to find information about X. But you could also have your students begin to develop, if not through LibGuides, but through Pearl trees or Pinterest pages or other kinds of collection tools where they will develop a collection of resources around a particular topic. And learners reflect on, revise their information sets in an iterative process. We're going to talk about how research is iterative as you go on. That'll come in a later lecture. But so school librarians lead by providing equitable access to materials, foster an understanding of the need for information and systems to make it accessible, engage in an ongoing cycle to discover, organize, describe, promote, and reflect. So this is where I find the LibGuide comes in on this. Discover, organize, describe, and promote on resources and formats. If you develop this LibGuide, then students and guide students to it, you will be organizing it for them, providing description through annotations, promoting it through making it available, and then you can have them work through reflecting on it, but I think it really covers the discover, organize, describe, and promote. You are doing that to help your students find resources in multiple formats. And I'm adding, it's not in the LibGuide directions right now, but I'm adding it a variety of tools to cite, organize, describe, and share resources. I want you to have as part of your LibGuide a section that guides students to tools for citation of sources, proper use and citation of sources. This is the overall framework that for learners. The standards are divided into multiple types of perspectives, and this is from the learner's perspective, and Curate is here for, again, making meaning for oneself and others by collecting, organizing, and sharing resources of personal relevance. And personal relevance sounds to me like, you know, I collect information about cats because I want a cat and have, you know, want as much information about cats and dogs or whatever. But personal relevance is also when you're doing a research topic, it's very relevant to you personally because you need that information in order to succeed. So the learners, this is from the learner's perspective. You are you are coming at it from a provider and school librarian perspective, but I wanted to include this, that you determine they have these competencies broken down to think, create, share, grow, which we looked at in that other, the previous slide that I showed you. But you can see that they exchange information resources, they gather information appropriate to the task, act on an information need, select and organize information for a variety of audiences. So openly communicating curation processes for others to use, interpret, and validate. LibGuides are just one way of doing this, something that I want you to experiment with by creating one, but there's certainly many other technology tools that you can use to do this. And as a matter of fact, I want to show you one particular free tool that can be, free tool that can be used in place of the LibGuide. It's not as elegant as a LibGuide, but LiveBinders are free, and you can have students create their own LiveBinders, and you can create your own LiveBinder with similar information to what you would put in LibGuides. So you can see here, you can go on LiveBinders, and there's tons of different examples. This is one where they've broken down tabs across the top, and then they have another subset of tabs for the Earth Science Binder for Teacher, and you can go through different tabs there. So you can look at the overall tab, and there can be secondary tabs, and then you can have information here. So LiveBinders are a great alternative to LibGuides if you don't have the money to have them in your school. We're using the university's LibGuides. This is called left-handed mouse use, which is not easy. And this is a very, very simple LibGuide. We're using the university's LibGuides. You're going to be set up with an account with a LibGuide that you can create for this assignment. You will be receiving an email from the library. Richard Kearney in the library is in charge of these, and he will set you up with an account. I haven't reached out to him yet because I didn't want to get you into that until after we've discussed LibGuides this week. So you can see that there's only really one tab here, but they've created book lists under the tab, have links to different websites, have links to an assignment, so there's a bunch of different resources there. Some people use in their LibGuides for putting new books. I thought this was a really cool, obviously it's very old, but each month when this librarian got new books, they added a page to they're using the actually it looks like they're using their, they might be using the LibGuide as a website for their school. Sometimes that happens, and this particular part of it is new arrivals, and you can link directly to your catalog. So by clicking on this, you would have gone directly to their catalog. You see you include a picture directly to the catalog, a call number, ISBN, publication date, and a short annotation. This is what I'm looking for. If you have a catalog, you're probably going to be connecting to Amazon, because we don't have you won't be able to, if we don't have the book in our library, you won't be able to connect through our LibGuide, but you can certainly connect through Amazon so people can read additional reviews about this source, and you can put your call number in if you're using books from your actual library, so that people can go and find the book. You want to make it easy for them to go and get the book when they are look in the LibGuide. Multiple pages, you can see this. This one is the one that's definitely using the LibGuide as a website for the library. So you see they have an about the library. and library policies, library services, library staff, website evaluation, research, APA citation, plagiarism, all kinds of information. So I want you to have something to do with a resource, and it'll depend on what works for your school. If your school is MLA, APA, I want you to, if they use citation machine, whatever is used in your school, if you're creating it for your school, or if not, you can use APA as a fallback. I want you to guide your students to materials for proper citation and proper use of resources. These are LibGuides through our library at William Patterson, and you can see there's a bunch of different ones. I have shown you the LibGuide already for this class, but you can see that we've developed, Yvonne and other people have developed a lot of LibGuides to go with different classes. We've developed them to go with even presentations that we've done. We do an Adolescent Literacy Institute and provide resources from that using multiple tabs across the top and connecting different, we connected to, these were people who spoke at that Adolescent Literacy Institute, and we connected to their websites, put up PowerPoints from the presentations, added some more resources. That one did not get updated. I apologize for that. Sometimes we have more, we think we're going to do more than we actually do. So what you need to do for the LibGuide is decide on a topic. If you're in a library, you can choose one that would be helpful for you in some way. Somebody has already emailed me indicating that they want to do a topic that would be useful in a classroom because they know that topic comes up in certain grades. You need to have a topic and you need to have a grade level, because what I'm going to be looking for is for you to not only have material about that topic, but it needs to be material for diverse users. So if you're doing 7th grade, you're going to have some people in a classroom that might read below 7th grade. You're going to have some that read above 7th grade. And you need to have a variety of resources for different kinds of learners. You need a variety of resources in terms of format, and you also need a variety in terms of make sure there's some diversity on the topic in what you choose, to cultural diversity as well in the topic. You can, once you let me know the topic, you can begin to collect resources and create annotations. And once you get your information, you're going to log on to LibGuides. One of the things that you'll be reminded of in the email from Richard Kearney is you need to make sure your LibGuide is set on unpublished or private. You are going to work on it as unpublished and then set it to private when you share it with me. So a minimum of 5 tabs, if you remember the tabs across the top, 30 resources altogether over those 5 tabs. Have to have annotations for everything. There's a home page that needs to indicate the scope of your LibGuide. So what is this for? What are you going to cover? What are you not going to cover? You don't have to necessarily put what you're not going to cover unless it's something particularly, like you may say, I'm going to do a particular topic that covers this, but I will not be going outside of that to cover this. It depends on how you want to describe the scope. You want multiple kinds of media, and which means books. I went the wrong way, sorry. Books, websites, DVDs, videos, whatever, multiple. And there is some, read the instructions, because there's also some additional information about exactly what you have to have. And resources for proper citation, as I indicated. So this is a sample from a student who was actually an English teacher, who, when she finished this, had said to me that she wished she had had this all along. She really wished that she had been able to put this together for herself earlier. So you can see how if you put something together, something like this together for a teacher, it's a way of collaborating. It's a way of letting them know what you have in your library. It's a way of letting them know what you can do for them and how you can collaborate with them in the future. So her home, she gives a description of what it's for, the grade level it's for, some additional information, warnings and sources containing graphic information, use your own judgment before incorporating materials. She has general Holocaust. She wanted to focus on night and the Holocaust, so she provided Holocaust information, Eli Wiesel, biographical information, multimedia. You can develop these tabs in whatever way fits your topic best. There's no template. It depends on your topic, what you're including, and how it makes sense to divide them up. So here she has, and I want resources with different reference material that we've talked about, kinds of reference sources that we've talked about. Okay. So LibGuide is available through SpringShare, and this is just the link. You can look up SpringShare and see what LibGuide's all about. And I just want to point out a few things to you. This is our LibGuide for this. Here are the bibliographies that I was blahing about early in the lecture. So best books for children. This is an annotated bibliography that somebody who's that's for a particular use, somebody who often used by experienced researchers. We're not necessarily doing research, but you're a more experienced user than somebody new to children's books. One thing I want to mention about these, once you create this, you will be able to, you can see here, this guide, it's not my guide, I can edit because Yvonne has put me on this as an editor, but I can go in and change the status to private or unpublished. You will be getting it as unpublished. When you change it to private, you will generate a URL and share that URL with me. And I believe I have under this assignment some other material on how to do this with more information. But this is the URL that you want to share with me. She has given this a particular URL that identifies it more closely than the usual jumble of numbers. You can name your LibGuide this way. So this is named you need this part, the LibGuides, but after this slash, you can rename it if you want. And that's the URL that you have to share with me. If you go up here and click on this URL up here, I am not going to be able to see your final product. She has way more than 5 of these. Oh, so what I wanted to say, I think I forgot. You will be able to share the LibGuide that you create via the URL with anyone in your school. And while you're still a student here, you will have access to change it. You won't be able to create additional LibGuides, and you won't be able to make changes on the list LibGuide after you leave the school. But you will be able to share it. It's a great thing to share if you're looking for a job, to say that you put this together, and it will be also needed for your e-portfolio that you're going to put together in field experience. You need to keep the LibGuide URL handy for that. All right. I just want to talk a little bit about the reference interview paper. I think I've gotten back to all of you who have given me the question. And also the bibliography, I've given you an extension to next week to have this due. Just a reminder, the bibliography is on should have articles about the reference interview. And basically you're going to write this paper as you're basically doing research. You've developed a research question, which is the question that we worked on together to come up with. And while it doesn't sound like a typical research question that you would develop, this is what you're going to use. Actually, your research question is, how do librarians perform on a reference interview in a case study situation, in an individual situation? So you are going to collect the data on that research question by asking the question we developed to go out and ask at 2 different librarians. You're going to do the literature review. That's what I want the bibliography on. The literature review is not on the question that you're asking the librarian, but on the reference interview and reference transaction. Your data collection will be going out to ask the question and writing out, collecting notes, taking notes, which I would suggest doing immediately after finishing with the question. You can even do it in the guise of taking notes with what they're giving you. You know, they're should be sharing information with you, and you can be taking notes about what you're observing while they're sharing information with you. And then you can take additional notes as you after you are done, immediately after you're done. I do it while your memory is fresh. So the body of the paper is going to be a lit review, observations, and this is one place where your observations can be in first person, because obviously you are going in, so you may say, I walked into the library and I asked the librarian a question. You don't have to use what we would normally consider proper language to use in a research paper, because this is basically an observation that you're making. And then you'll analyze the data, which is basically you are collecting qualitative data because you're not collecting numbers or surveys. Your observations are qualitative data, and you're going to analyze it by comparing how these 2 librarians did with what is considered to be, based on your literature review, the proper way to conduct a research reference transaction and interview. And then a reflection on the experience to end the paper, and how this might improve your own work as a librarian doing in the reference transaction and reference interview. Should be about 10 pages double-spaced and use APA format. You need to include the reference list that you're sending me as part of the paper. I just wanted to, since you're doing basically data collection, I want to talk about, as I said, qualitative versus quantitative versus mixed methods. And you'll see this in the papers that the research papers that you collect, the peer-reviewed papers that you collect for this. Quantitative research is basically experimental research with you isolate a variable and you manipulate that variable. It's what you do for your SGOs if you're a teacher and you give a pre-test, teach them something, and then give a post-test. Basically, you're collecting quantitative data that you look for percentage improvements. It's the way quantitative research is the way most scientific and medical research is done, where they do some kind of, you have a baseline, they manipulate in some way, give you medicine, and then find out if you improved or stayed the same or didn't improve. It's often with control groups when it's done in a highly a really high quality quantitative research will have a control group. You don't often see that in library and social science type quantitative research though. Qualitative research are systematic observations. It can also be things like focus interviews, survey, individual interviews, and case studies. And then mixed methods includes the use of one or more method data collection or research. So you may read something that has actually done some quantitative and some qualitative research. I'm giving you this because it's something that you should know as you read peer reviewed articles and as you read actual research, because you should know how, be able to talk about how this data is collected and understand what it is you're reading in terms of the type of research that's being done. So that's it. Thank you very much. And I will see you on the discussion boards.